Good morning, it's Miss Laura from Lawrence Branch, and today I'm going to show you how to do calling this super simple spring scavenger hunt. Easy activity to do. It's one that the whole family can work on together. It's one that you can work on independently. There's a lot of flexibility, and when I say super simple, I mean that it's going to be very easy. Everything that you see here in front of me are the things that I needed. Got a set of old catalogs, or if you had magazines or junk mail, things that are going to go out to be recycled, that would be fine. You need some scrap paper. This is what I've got to work with at home. Some white paper is good. I think I've got somebody's old AP English notebook here. I've got old crayons, a pair of scissors, a couple pens, one of them's a Sharpie, and I've got glue stick, but you could easily use liquid glue. And you can do this all from your head, but I got some inspiration online, and I used a website called freekidscrafts.com. And I was particularly looking to have something spring-oriented. But on the internet, there are tons of other ideas and all seasons and many different themes for scavenger hunts. Why do this craft? It can be done indoors or outdoors. So if you have access to a big yard or a wooded area, your cellar, your attic, your bedroom, just your kitchen, a closet, any place where you can find things. It's almost like an I Spy game. Any place that you can find things, you could do this activity indoors or out or both. Again, it's very basic. I think of this as an unplugged activity. As a matter of fact, the reason I chose this one is that we lost power the other day. The power company needed to do some testing, so I wasn't sure when we were going to get our power back, and right away I turned my phone off because I didn't want to risk not having my phone battery. So I sat here and did this over the course of several days, and think of it like an I Spy scavenger hunt puzzle game. It's about the process of doing it, and so I think this is why I enjoyed doing it so much, because it's the process of doing it over time. It's not about getting it done the quickest, unless you want to make it that way. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. For me, it encouraged reading, because I had a bunch of old magazines, and you probably do too, that your family might take, and you've got them sitting around and you're thinking, oh, I need to read these. And so for me, I was going through all those magazines and I was marking articles that I wanted to read. So that's always a good thing. And again, it was a quiet activity. I wasn't listening to the blaring news. You could do it with music, but it was a very introspective activity for me, and I think you would enjoy it as well. It could be adapted, and it could be a travel game. You know, as I said, I chose a spring theme, but if you were later on, obviously, when we can travel again, and let's say you take a vacation, a driving vacation down to Florida or up to Maine or wherever your family goes, you could think about things that are along the way and adapt your scavenger hunt to that. So now we'll talk a little bit more about the supplies that you might need. You saw that I had paper, scissors, glue, crayons. You're going to need a piece of light colored paper. Here's what it looks like. You could, if you had a ruler, that would be good, but we didn't have one. I don't think we used one. So what you're going to do is decide on the theme of what you actually want to be looking for, because that's going to dictate how many grids that you need. You could freehand it, or you could divide it out easily, but I specifically challenged myself. I wanted to use this spring scavenger hunt, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I knew that I needed 25 spaces. You could go online actually if you wanted to and just print out a blank template of a table that looked that way. But I just did mine with pen. So I'm not going to do it for you here, but you will see later in a compilation of how I did this and how I glued. So I'm not showing you how to draw the grid of 5, but it's easy to do. And the other choice is that you could fold your paper like this. Simply fold it, and that will help you. If you accordion it, that would help you to get your spaces that you need. That's very easy to do. And then you're going to decide on what your objects that you need are. And I pretty much kept my phone open the whole time while I was browsing. So the next step was, after I made my grid, I didn't label them yet. I didn't put all the labels of what I wanted because I found that some of the clip art and some of the magazine snips were bigger and smaller. So I did not label each item until the end. And I don't think I put a title on it right away either. And you might be able to tell from this is actually 2 pieces of paper. This is one background piece, and then it's another piece that's cut to make the cover. I mean, to make the title. And so another way that you could do this is simply to use the internet idea and print it out, and it's instant and it's finished. But as I said, for me, this was about the process and cutting out magazines. This is kind of an old school way of doing it. I was born in the mid-60s, so by the mid-70s, if you were a school kid who had to do an assignment and find pictures, guess what? We didn't have the internet back then. And so you did save your newspapers and your magazines and your holiday catalogs, and that was where we got pictures. So this is, I almost think of this as being kind of quaint, and it brought me back to my girlhood, but this is the way we did most of our school projects in those days. So once I decided on which objects I wanted, I simply had my stack of magazines, and I started looking through, and I just literally went through all of them page by page. As I said, along the way, I decided that there were a lot of articles I wanted to read, so I kind of flipped the pages up, and now I've got a whole bunch of those that I want to look back at. So if I saw something that I wanted, here's a picture of a bird. You don't need me to show you how to clip out a picture, but I would clip it out, and I kind of made little piles, and I kind of looked at my grid and I arranged my objects in the order on my grid, even though it wasn't labeled yet. If I found a bunch of different butterflies or potted plants, I kind of laid them down. And so just a word of warning, if you're going to have this go on over several sessions, keep it in a safe spot or cover it with a piece of paper. Because all you need is for the heat to come on, or somebody who doesn't know what you're doing to come along, and then all your pieces of paper get scattered. So as I said, the process of looking through your magazines is a fun activity. You're going to go through and you're going to try to find the things that meet your criteria. Sometimes I go, well, I don't, this one's okay, I might use it, but I think I want to try to find a better example. So that took me the course of 2 or 3 days. Little by little, I found all of the things that I needed, and I was being a stickler, and I really wanted to make sure I would find every picture. I think at the end, when I talk about the rules, you might want to give yourself, you might not find everything. What do you think the last object that I found? Of course, it depends on where you're looking and what magazines you're using. I had a bunch of household magazines, some fashion, beauty, and darn if I could not find a picture of a lawnmower. That was the second to the last object that I found. Finally, I found it in an old electric company brochure. Finally found one, and the rainbow was the object that I never really found in person. All right, so you're going to see in my compilation how I glued these all down. That's easy to do. Glue down your pictures, and then you're going to label them. Write your labels on, and make your heading, And then finally this morning I had my trusty crayons, and I just looked a little bit stark, so I just did some squiggles. And you don't need to know how to draw flowers or anything like that. I just did some little 3 dots, some squiggles, and things like that. So it's all decorated, and it can be used again and again, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want to just print one out. I can use this, and I can use it in several ways. So let me look at my notes here. Oh yes, so again, when I was talking about the process, you know, your students, you have a lot of schoolwork that you have to get done. You need to get your assignments done. For us, we librarians, we like to look things up and we like to find answers. And so this was a very different activity. As I said, I was browsing. I was literally going in any order through all my supplies, looking, and it reminded me a little bit about when I was in my early days as a librarian. Sometimes we had to do that. We couldn't just look something up online. We had to go through an index. We might flip through pages of a book to find a picture or an answer. So it brought me back to that. Normally at home, or if you were really trying to get this done quickly, you would look it up. You would look up, do an image search, and you could snip it right out and polish it, and you'd have it done in no time. This was very different. All right, so that's pretty much the technique. And now I'm going to show you a montage of how I glued the grids and put this all together. The thing about this project is, since we're making this from scratch, it's really 2 scavenger hunts in one. The one is you're hunting for all of the snips out of your magazines to make your game sheet, let's call it, and then the other is later on when you have to go out and find all of the objects. Most of you have done scavenger hunts before. They're very popular with kids. They're popular at my library. We do them, we organize them in order to highlight different portions of the library's collection. And we often make this into a passive activity. And for us, what that means is whenever you happen by or come into the library, or whenever a family comes in, they can do it at their speed when it suits them. Sometimes we actually organize them and it has to be at a certain time. You come on a Tuesday night at 6:30 or so on. So as I said before, this could be done on an ongoing basis whenever you have some free time, whenever you feel like doing it. So the purpose of this is really for fun and finding items in the spring. So we're not trying to learn too much about, you know, don't think that this is too learny. It's fun. It's going to be fun for you. You could make them up for each other. A parent could make it up for younger people. But the idea is that everybody feels like they're working on it. So if you have younger brothers and sisters, let them do it. Let them feel like they're working on it the same as you, and they'll enjoy it. You could do it in teams. You could split off. You could have mom and dad. You could have two siblings working together. You could have dad and kid and so on. And you could work as teams if you like. Particularly if you're outside and you're going to be, you know, you want to make sure everybody is supervised. You could do it in a way that whoever does it the quickest, you could say, okay, everybody, we've got a half hour. Let's see who finds the most things. You could do it high score. You know, if you really looked and you knew which one of these were going to be harder to find, and believe me, for me, some of them were, you could kind of give it a scoring system. And at the end, you could count it up and say, okay, who got the most points? Because some of these are quite easy to find. You could challenge yourself to find things in different sizes or different colors, or how many, if you could find the most of a certain thing. And you might want to give yourself some free spaces. You might want to say, okay, you have to find every single thing, or you could say, you could give yourself maybe 2 or 3 that you can't find. So for me, I never did find the rainbow, and it's just the sun just peeked out a little bit. If I can find a rainbow, I'm going to do it. So for me, my rules were, you know, we have to stay in the house. I had the yard. But we did take a nice ride to get some takeout food. Your family's probably doing that too. And when we went downtown, the streets were deserted, but the windows were decorated so nicely. I got out of the car once or twice, and I found some of the things I was looking for in the shop windows. So that was neat. So you could make it so that you actually have to find the actual object, or that it could be a representation of it. So mine, in order to find all of these, I had to make it, it was a free-for-all. I literally checked every label in this house. I checked soup cans, I went through the closets, I went through our cleaning supplies, greeting cards. I was making it that no matter where you could find a representation of that object, that could count. So you might want to have somebody be a judge. In this case, I don't want to mark up my my sheet because I want to be able to use this again. So I was using a list, and I was actually writing. If I found it, I just put a little check mark. So you could do it that way. So I think that's pretty much it. Have fun with it, and you're going to see that I took pictures. And you might want to do that too. You don't have to. You could just mark it down that you found it, but I was trying to make it a little bit into a photography project, not to mention a little more of an exciting video presentation so that you could see the idea of the things that I found. And here are the pictures of the items that I found. make this super simple spring scavenger hunt sheet, and I hope you have fun with it with your family. Thanks for listening.